classroom in Sapporo. 38-year-olds, no teaching assistant, no fidget tools on the desks, no background music. The teacher writes a problem on the board. The room goes completely silent, not the performative silence of children suppressing themselves, the deep, settled quiet of children who are genuinely, fully inside a task. 22 minutes pass without a single child losing the thread. Now picture a classroom almost anywhere in the Western world, the same age group, the same subject. Within 4 minutes, 3 children have asked to go to the bathroom. 2 are tapping. 1 is crying quietly about something unrelated. A teaching assistant is managing the edges, while the teacher manages the middle. And this is considered normal. Attention deficit is now so common in Western children that the deficit itself has become the expectation. But here's what the research says. The attention span of a child is not a fixed biological fact. It is a trained capacity, and Japanese children, raised in the same era of screens and digital noise as Western children, consistently outperform their peers on every sustained attention and focus measure available. The reason is not medication, not genetic advantage, not a stricter classroom. It is 6 specific practices built into Japanese childhood from the very beginning. By the end of this video, you'll understand each one and exactly why the neuroscience supports them. The first practice is called Ma, and we've touched on it in other videos, but here it earns its most important context. Ma is the Japanese appreciation of empty space. The pause, the gap, the moment of nothing between moments of something. And in the context of focus, it means this. Japanese children are not filled. From toddlerhood, Japanese parents resist the impulse to fill every quiet moment with stimulation. Car journeys pass in silence. Waiting rooms are not managed with screens. The gap between one activity and the next is allowed to simply be a gap. Why does this matter for the brain? Because the capacity for sustained attention is built in the quiet, not in the noise. Neuroscientists studying attention development in children have found that the single greatest predictor of a child's ability to sustain focus is how much unstructured, unstimulated time they experience daily. A brain that never has to generate its own content becomes dependent on external content to stay engaged. A brain regularly given silence learns to go inward, and inward is exactly where focus lives. One practice this week, let your child be bored for 20 minutes without offering a solution. That discomfort is the training. The second practice is called Shoshin, beginner's mind. In Japan, children are taught to approach each new task as if it is the first thing they have ever done, not with false excitement, but with genuine open attention. No assumptions, no rushing to the end, no skipping the beginning because you think you already know. The reason this builds focus is neurological. When the brain approaches a task with genuine curiosity, the hippocampus and the prefrontal cortex activate together, creating what neuroscientists call an attentive encoding state. This is the brain at peak learning capacity. When a child approaches a task with the assumption that they already know it, or that it will be boring, or that they want it finished, the attentive encoding state collapses. They are physically in the room but neurologically elsewhere. A 2019 study from the University of Tokyo found that children taught mindful task entry practices, pausing before beginning, taking one slow breath, looking at the task fresh, showed measurably higher sustained attention scores over a 6-month period. Before your child starts homework tonight, ask them one question. What do you notice about this? That question activates Shoshin. The third practice is single environment learning. In Japanese homes and schools, different activities happen in different, distinct spaces. Eating happens at the table. Sleeping happens at the bedroom. Studying happens at a desk, cleared of everything except the task. This is not just tidiness. It is environmental architecture for the brain. Neuroscientists call this context-dependent memory and attention, the phenomenon by which the brain uses physical environment as a cue for what mental mode to enter. A child who eats, watches videos, does homework, and plays games all in the same chair on the same couch is training their brain to associate that space with everything simultaneously, which means it associates it with nothing specifically. A child who always studies at the same clear desk is training their brain to enter focus mode the moment they sit down. The environment becomes a trigger. Create a single, dedicated, cleared space for focused work in your home. No food, no screens, nothing except the task. Use it every time. The brain will begin to do the rest automatically. The fourth practice is called Renshu, repetitive, deliberate practice. Japanese children spend more time in repetitive skill practice than almost any other culture. The same kanji character written 40 times. The same musical phrase played until the fingers know it without the mind. the same mathematical process repeated until it is automatic. Western education has shifted away from repetition, associating it with rote learning and intellectual passivity. But neuroscience tells a different story. Repetition, performed with attention, builds myelin, the sheath around neural pathways that increases their speed and efficiency. A well-myelinated neural pathway requires far less attentional effort to operate, which frees up cognitive resources for deeper engagement. In other words, deliberate repetition doesn't dull the mind. It liberates it. When a child can read fluently without effort, their attention can go to meaning. When a child can multiply without struggle, their attention can go to the problem. Repetition is not the enemy of focus. It is the infrastructure that makes deep focus possible. The fifth practice is outdoor exposure, not outdoor play in the modern Western sense of supervised structured activity, but genuine unstructured time in natural environments. Japanese children still they still play in parks without adults managing every moment. And this matters for focus in ways that are now well documented. Research published in the journal Psychological Science found that children who spent regular time in unstructured natural environments showed significantly better performance on tests of directed attention than children with limited nature exposure. The theory, called attention restoration theory, proposes that natural environments engage a form of effortless attention, allowing the directed attention networks used for focused work to rest and replenish. A brain that never rests its focus muscles eventually cannot use them. 20 minutes outside in an unstructured natural environment daily is not a break from learning. It is how the learning brain maintains itself. The sixth practice is the ritual transition. In Japan, moving from one activity to the next is never abrupt. There's almost always a small, deliberate marker, a bow at the beginning of class, a quiet moment before lunch, a brief tidying of the desk before moving to the next subject. These transitions are not ceremonial decoration. They are neurological reset points. Research on task switching from MIT's Cognitive Science Department found that abrupt transitions between tasks leave residual cognitive activation from the previous task, impairing performance on the new one for up to 23 minutes. A brief, ritualized pause between activities, even 30 seconds of stillness, significantly reduces this residual activation. The Japanese bow before beginning is not about respect alone. It is the brain clearing its screen before loading the next program. Tonight, introduce one transition ritual with your child. Before homework, 1 minute of quiet sitting. Before bed, a deliberate putting away of the day. Small, consistent, every time. The brain will learn to shift with it. Ma creates the inner space where focus can develop. Shoshin keeps the brain genuinely present. Single environment learning makes focus automatic. Renshu builds the neural infrastructure for depth. Nature exposure replenishes the attentional reserves. Ritual transition clears the cognitive field. 6 practices, none of them requiring a diagnosis, a specialist, or a single purchase. Japanese children don't have better focus because they are wired differently. They have better focus because they are trained differently, starting before they can articulate what attention even means. The capacity is available to every child. The question is only whether we build the conditions for it, or whether we keep wondering why it doesn't appear on its own. Share this with a parent who believes their child simply can't focus. And subscribe, because there is a lot more coming.